I stood alone on the deck of the research vessel Nautilus, gazing out at the vast, unending Pacific Ocean. The horizon stretched endlessly in every direction, a seemingly infinite expanse of deep blue that reflected the sky's shifting moods. The gentle sway of the ship beneath my feet was a minor comfort against the storm of emotions churning within me. Excitement, anticipation, and a whisper of fear mingled together, creating a sensation I had never quite felt before. My heart raced in rhythm with the waves, each beat a reminder of the monumental journey I was about to undertake. Today was the day I had dreamed of for years, a chance to dive into the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the world's oceans. As a marine biologist, this moment was the culmination of my life's work and preparation. The countless hours spent studying, the rigorous training, and the meticulous planning had all led to this singular point in time. I would be descending over 36,000 feet into a world that remained mostly unknown to humanity, a place where the pressure is so immense that it crushes almost everything in its grasp, and the darkness is so absolute that even the faintest light struggles to penetrate. This dive was more than just a scientific expedition, it was an exploration into the very heart of the Earth's mysteries. What secrets did the Mariana Trench hold? What life forms had adapted to survive in such an extreme environment, where the laws of nature seemed to be rewritten? These questions had haunted my thoughts for as long as I could remember, driving me forward, even when the challenges seemed insurmountable. The ocean breeze tousled my hair as I stood there, lost in contemplation. I knew that the descent would not be easy. The journey into the unknown was fraught with risks, from the immense pressures that could crush the submersible to the unpredictable nature of the deep sea environment. But these dangers only fueled my determination. The fear was real, but it was tempered by the thrill of discovery, the knowledge that I was on the brink of witnessing something no one else had ever seen. As I took a deep breath, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The fear, the anticipation, the excitement, they were all part of the experience, a reminder that I was about to step into a world few had ever dared to explore. The dive into the Mariana Trench was not just a journey into the depths of the ocean, it was a journey into the depths of my own resolve, my own desire to push the boundaries of what we know about our planet. And as the preparations for the dive continued around me, I knew that I was ready to face whatever awaited me in the darkness below. My training had been grueling. I had spent months preparing for this mission, including mastering emergency protocols and learning to operate the intricate systems of the submersible alone. I endured countless hours in a hyperbaric chamber, acclimating my body to the crushing pressures of the deep sea. Physical conditioning, mental fortitude exercises, and meticulous simulations had all led to this moment. Despite the training, a part of me remained apprehensive. The immense pressure down there could be fatal, and the isolation was profound. But the allure of discovering new species and contributing to our understanding of Earth's final frontier made every risk worth it. The submersible, Deep Explorer, was an engineering marvel designed for a solo journey into the abyss. Its sleek, elongated teardrop shape was built to endure the enormous pressures of the deep sea. The titanium hull was reinforced with layers of composite materials, and it was equipped with high-definition cameras, robotic arms for collecting samples, and a suite of scientific instruments. The interior was compact, designed to accommodate me and the essential equipment. With just enough space to operate the controls and conduct my research, it was both a marvel of engineering and a tight squeeze. As I donned my thermal gear, designed to protect me from the freezing temperatures of the deep, a rush of adrenaline surged through me. The crew worked with practiced precision, performing last-minute checks and securing the submersible. With a final nod to the team, I climbed into the submersible and sealed the hatch behind me. The cabin lit up with the soft glow of the control panels, and a low hum filled the space as the systems activated. With a final nod to the team, I climbed into the submersible and sealed the hatch behind me, the sound of the outer world muffling into silence. The cabin lit up with the soft glow of the control panels, each light representing a different system coming online. The low hum of the engines filled the space, a steady reminder of the power and technology that would carry me into the depths. I adjusted my seat, double-checked the instrument readouts, and took a deep breath, trying to quell the mixture of excitement and anxiety bubbling inside me. The final command was given, and the deep explorer was gently lowered into the water. The transition from air to water was seamless, the submersible gliding beneath the surface with an almost surreal grace. As the surface above quickly receded, I felt a profound sense of isolation take hold. The once bright sky faded from view, replaced by the inky blackness of the ocean's depths. Initially, the descent was through the epipelagic zone, where sunlight still penetrated, casting the water in hues of blue and green. Fish darted around the submersible, their scales catching the light in flashes of silver. The water was alive with motion, teeming with life in a vibrant aquatic dance. But soon, the sunlight began to weaken, the bright rays filtering down in delicate, shimmering beams that grew fainter with every passing meter. As I continued downward, the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone, enveloped me. Here, the light was dim and eerie, a perpetual dusk where the outlines of creatures became shadowy, and bioluminescence began to dominate the scene. The submersible's lights revealed schools of fish with glowing bodies and eyes like lanterns, creatures adapted to the eternal twilight of this realm. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the pressure began to increase, causing the hull to creak softly. Further down, I entered the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. All traces of natural light were gone, replaced by an all-consuming darkness that pressed in from every direction. The submersible's floodlights cut through the blackness, revealing strange, ghostly creatures that seemed more alien than earthly. Giant squid, translucent jellyfish, and other bizarre life forms drifted by, their movements slow and deliberate, as if conserving energy in the cold, oxygen-starved waters. Finally, the abyssal zone came into view. The darkness here was absolute, a void that seemed to swallow the light entirely. The pressure was immense, almost crushing, a force that could obliterate any vessel not specifically designed to withstand it. The water was near freezing, a hostile environment where only the hardiest of life forms could survive. It was in this foreboding realm that the deep explorer would continue its journey, deeper still, into the unknown. Entering the abyssal zone, I murmured to myself, trying to steady my nerves. All systems normal. My heart pounded as I descended further into the Mariana Trench. The pressure outside was immense, and the depth was overwhelming. The trench itself is a colossal underwater canyon stretching over 1,550 miles long and 45 miles wide, plunging nearly 7 miles deep. Here, the pressure is over 1,000 times greater than its sea level, and the temperature hovers just above freezing. It's a realm of perpetual darkness, where only the most resilient creatures can survive. As the deep explorer continued its journey, the world above seemed a distant memory. Each moment brought me closer to the profound, unknown depths of the Mariana Trench. Alone in the submersible, I felt like an intruder in this alien world, yet the thrill of discovery pushed me forward. This was my dream realized, and the mysteries of the deep awaited. The descent continued, and as I passed the abyssal zone, the darkness deepened and the pressure increased. I had been alone in the deep explorer for hours. The only sounds were the steady hum of the submersible's systems and my own breathing, amplified by the tight confines of the cabin. I focused on maintaining calm, though my heartbeat was a steady drumbeat against the silence. Physically, the pressure was starting to make its presence known. I could feel a slight, almost imperceptible tension in my chest, a reminder of the 1,000 times atmospheric pressure pressing down on me. My muscles ached from the prolonged stillness, and the cold was penetrating, despite the thermal gear. The temperature inside the submersible was regulated, but the cold seeped through in subtle ways. Every now and then I shifted in my seat, trying to alleviate the stiffness, but the confined space left little room for movement. Mentally, the isolation was the greatest challenge. The darkness outside was complete, a vast, impenetrable void that seemed to stretch on forever. My only connection to the world outside was the faint glow of the submersible's instruments and the occasional flicker of bioluminescent creatures passing by. I forced myself to focus on the task at hand, the scientific mission that had driven me to undertake this expedition. The solitude was profound, and the realization of my isolation both invigorated and unnerved me. As I descended further, a brief crackle of static over the comms signaled the inevitable: the connection to the surface was lost. I had anticipated this moment, knowing that the extreme depth and crushing pressure would eventually sever the fragile link. The electromagnetic signals that enabled communication struggled to penetrate the dense layers of water and rock. The deeper I went, the more the signal deteriorated, until finally it could no longer reach the surface. This was no cause for alarm, though it was an expected consequence of venturing into one of the most remote and hostile environments on Earth. The Deep Explorer was equipped with state-of-the-art autonomous systems designed to handle such isolation. It could record data, navigate, and operate its instruments without external input, relying on its pre-programmed directives and my manual control. Yet, despite the advanced technology, the loss of connection was a stark reminder of how truly alone I was. There was no longer a tether to the world above, no way to call for help, no reassurance from the crew. I was entirely on my own in this pitch-black void, relying solely on the integrity of the submersible and my own skills to complete the mission and return safely to the surface. The Deep Explorer was holding up remarkably well. Designed to withstand the immense pressures of the Hadal Zone, it was a marvel of engineering. The control panels were alive with data, and the floodlights cast a stark contrast against the encroaching darkness. The sub's robust titanium hull, reinforced with layers of advanced composites, ensured that I remained safe. Passing through the Hadal Zone was like entering another world entirely. The Hadal Zone is characterized by extreme pressure, near freezing temperatures, and complete darkness. The submersible's advanced sonar systems painted a picture of the surrounding terrain, revealing towering underwater mountains and deep ravines. It was a landscape of harsh beauty, sculpted by forces beyond human comprehension. As I approached the ocean floor, the anticipation was palpable. My eyes were fixed on the monitors, eagerly awaiting the first glimpses of the trench's floor. The pressure outside was immense, but the submersible's integrity was holding strong. I had prepared for this, but the reality of reaching the deepest part of the ocean was both thrilling and daunting. Finally, the submersible touched down on the floor of the Mariana Trench, ending what had felt like an eternal descent into the abyss. The descent was complete. As I settled onto the floor of the Mariana Trench, the enormity of the moment began to sink in. The darkness was absolute, an almost tactile presence pressing in from every direction. The only source of illumination was the submersible's floodlights, slicing through the murk to reveal the barren, alien landscape that stretched out before me. A profound sense of solitude enveloped me, more intense than anything I had ever experienced. It was as if I had journeyed to the edge of the world, where no light from the sun could reach, and no other human had dared to venture. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the submersible's hull adjusting to the immense pressure. In that moment, I realized just how isolated I truly was, miles beneath the surface, with nothing but the cold, crushing deep surrounding me. The weight of the ocean pressed down not just on the submersible but on my very soul, a reminder that I was a lone explorer in a place few had ever seen. The landscape was otherworldly, a stark contrast to the vibrant marine environments I had explored in the past. The seabed was a mix of fine sediment and jagged rock formations, sculpted by the unimaginable pressures of the deep. Towering pillars of basalt rose from the floor, their surfaces encrusted with strange, translucent creatures that pulsed with an eerie bioluminescence. The terrain was dotted with hydrothermal vents, spewing superheated water and minerals into the frigid water, creating plumes that shimmered in the floodlights. Around these vents, life thrived in ways that defied the harsh conditions: tube worms, shrimp, and other exotic organisms that seemed more at home in a science fiction novel than on Earth. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the extensive training that had prepared me for this moment. The robotic arms of the Deep Explorer were nimble and precise, allowing me to collect sediment and biological samples with ease. The seabed around me was a surreal landscape of alien formations and strange, glowing organisms. The samples I gathered felt like a triumph, each one a key to unlocking the secrets of this remote part of the ocean. For a while, everything seemed to proceed normally. The bioluminescent creatures danced in the submersible's floodlights, their ethereal glow providing a mesmerizing view of the trench's ecosystem. I carefully maneuvered the submersible to capture these creatures and collect sediment samples from the ocean floor. The data was consistent, the samples were intact, and the mission was going according to plan. Then, something changed. I noticed a shift in the behavior of the creatures around me. The once active bioluminescent jellyfish and deep-sea fish suddenly vanished into the darkness. An uneasy stillness settled over the trench floor. My pulse quickened as I scanned the area, trying to understand the sudden change. I strained to see beyond the reach of the submersible's lights, but the darkness was impenetrable. The floodlights illuminated only a small, controlled area, leaving the vast majority of the trench cloaked in shadows. That's when I saw it movement in the darkness. It was elusive, just beyond the light's reach, but unmistakable. The sand on the ocean floor began to shift, disturbed by something unseen. And then, the legs emerged long, segmented, crab-like appendages that seemed to belong to a creature far larger than anything I had anticipated. As I adjusted the controls, the submersible's light swept across the area, and I caught more glimpses of these legs moving through the sand. The sounds of scraping and shifting sediment grew louder, and I realized that multiple creatures were moving around me. The legs moved with an eerie grace, and every so often, I would catch a fleeting view of one of these beings passing through the gloom. One of the creatures drew closer, coming within the periphery of the submersible's lights. It was still too far for a detailed view, but it was clear that this was no ordinary crab. The appendages were enormous, much larger than the so-called Big Daddy, the largest crab known to science. My heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. Could I have discovered a new, colossal species of crab? Determined to document my findings, I activated the submersible's high-definition cameras and focused them on the area of activity. The images on the monitor were grainy and unclear, but they captured the shadowy forms and the massive legs moving through the sand. The idea of having found the largest crab ever recorded filled me with excitement. But as the creature drew closer, a sense of unease began to overshadow that initial thrill. The movement was not just large, it was deliberate and methodical, as if the creatures were deliberately surrounding me. My training had prepared me for many scenarios, but I had never anticipated encountering a potential swarm of massive, unknown creatures. The submersible's instruments began to register fluctuations, and the sediment around me seemed to churn more violently. I noticed that the creatures were not just moving, they were converging, as if drawn to the submersible's presence. The sense of being watched grew stronger, and a chill ran down my spine despite the warmth inside the cabin. But then, silence descended like a heavy curtain, and the darkness around me seemed to swallow even the faint glow of the submersible's instruments. I waited, my senses heightened, searching for any sign of the giant crabs, but nothing moved, no sound, no glimpse. The sand around remained still, as if the aquatic life had been repelled. Then, a subtle sound emerged from the side of the submersible, a sort of light tapping, as if something was exploring the metal walls with curiosity. I quickly turned, my eyes fixed on the metal surfaces that formed the cabin's shield. What could be on the other side? The ensuing silence seemed to challenge me to find out. Suddenly, a loud bang shook the submersible. The window glass rattled and I nearly jumped out of my seat, my heart pounding. With instinctive speed, I whipped around to face the source of the noise, my eyes locking onto the main viewing port. To my horror, I saw that something had slammed into the thick glass, leaving a web of crackling marks etched across its surface. The jagged lines spread like fractures in ice, distorting the murky darkness outside. A cold sweat broke out across my skin as the terrifying reality sank in. If that glass hadn't held, the submersible would have imploded under the crushing pressure of the deep. In the blink of an eye, I would have been obliterated, killed in less than a second, with no chance to even comprehend what had happened. The pressure down here was so immense that the slightest breach would have meant instant death, my body crushed and flattened like an empty can underfoot. I forced myself to steady my breathing, trying to make sense of the chaos outside. Through the murky darkness, I could see shadows moving with a disturbing, unnatural grace. My mind raced as I tried to identify the source of the threat. I stared in horror, my voice barely a whisper, as the words escaped me. What in God's name are those things? The creatures I had initially thought were crabs revealed their true nature as they drew closer. They were not mere crustaceans, they were towering, nightmarish humanoids with multiple legs that moved more like giant, predatory spiders than crabs. Their bodies were elongated and gaunt, standing at an unsettling height that made them all the more menacing. Draped in nearly translucent, sickly skin that glowed with a ghastly, otherworldly light, they looked like twisted remnants of some forgotten world. Their torsos and waists were unnaturally thin, while their long, spindly arms extended forward like elongated, skeletal claws, ready to ensnare anything that crossed their path. As the creatures drew closer, I noticed another unsettling aspect of their appearance. From their spindly arms and along their gaunt backs sprouted membranous appendages, resembling the delicate fronds of deep-sea algae. These appendages undulated and drifted with their movements, almost as if they were alive, giving the impression that the creatures were part of the ocean itself. The algae-like strands were thin and sinewy, some stretching long and flowing like tattered banners in the current, while others clung to their bodies like decayed fins. The effect was eerie, as if these beings had adapted perfectly to their dark, aquatic environment, merging with the deep-sea flora to become one with the abyssal world around them. These appendages added to their grotesque appearance, making them seem even more alien and otherworldly. It was as if the creatures had evolved to blend into their surroundings, their bodies designed to navigate and hunt in the inky darkness of the trench. The sight of these algae-like membranes, shifting and pulsating with each movement, made them appear almost spectral ghosts of the deep, haunting the dark waters with their unnerving presence. Some of these horrifying beings were wielding crude, menacing spears, crafted from what appeared to be bone or a dark, coral-like material. The spears were jagged and barbed, adding to the grotesque aura of the creatures. Their heads were shrouded in darkness, but I could make out a pair of eerie, pulsating orbs where their eyes should be, casting a malevolent, greenish glow that seemed to pierce through the gloom. As they drew nearer, the creatures began to emit low, guttural sounds, an eerie mixture of clicks, hisses, and what almost sounded like a distorted, unnatural whisper. It was a chilling noise that seemed to resonate within the submersible, making the very air vibrate with an otherworldly hum. At first, I assumed these sounds were just mindless animalistic noises, a natural consequence of whatever twisted physiology these beings possessed. But as I listened more closely, I began to realize there was a rhythm to the sounds, an almost deliberate cadence that suggested they were not just noises, but a form of communication. The clicks were sharp and rapid, like the tapping of claws on glass, while the hisses came in slow, deliberate bursts. The whispers were the most disturbing of all, soft, breathy sounds that almost seemed to form words, though in a language I couldn't begin to understand. The noise sent a shiver down my spine, heightening the sense of dread that had taken hold of me. It was as if the creatures were communicating, coordinating their movements, or perhaps even discussing me, the intruder in their world. The thought that they might possess some form of intelligence, that they were not just mindless predators but beings with a purpose, filled me with a new kind of terror. As I observed them, it became evident that the loud bang I had heard moments earlier was the result of one of these spears striking the glass of the submersible. The sight of the menacing creatures and the damage to the glass intensified my fear, underscoring the growing danger they represented. The creatures advanced slowly, their spider-like legs moving with a deliberate, almost predatory grace. They pointed their crude, jagged spears directly at me, their eerie, pulsating eyes glinting with malevolent intent. As they closed in, a low, guttural sound emanated from deep within their throats, a noise so alien and foreboding that it resonated through the walls of the submersible, making the very air seem to vibrate with dread. Panic surged through me, and for a moment I was utterly lost. The realization that I was completely alone, with no way to call for help, hit me like a wave of icy water. The communication link with the surface had been severed as expected upon reaching these depths, but the finality of it now felt crushing. I had always believed I was prepared for anything this expedition might throw at me, even death if it came to that. Yet now, face to face with these monstrous beings, I realized how desperately unready I was. My mind raced, but no solutions presented themselves, only the terrifying certainty that there was nothing I could do to stop them. My entire body was gripped by a paralyzing fear. The submersible, designed for scientific exploration and equipped with only basic instrumentation, was utterly defenseless against such a threat. My hands shook uncontrollably, and in my panic, I accidentally brushed against the control panel. To my surprise, the robotic arm of the submersible jerked into motion. The sudden movement caused the creatures to flinch and scatter, retreating into the dark waters from which they had emerged. As they backed away, the eerie sounds they had been emitting shifted, becoming more frantic, the rhythm faster and more chaotic. It was as if they were warning each other, or perhaps expressing fear for the first time. The quick reaction of the robotic arm had inadvertently frightened them, giving me a precious moment of reprieve. Seizing this unexpected opportunity, I scrambled to initiate the emergency ascent. My fingers fumbled with the controls as I engaged the ascent protocol, the submersible's engines groaning to life with a deep, resonant hum. The submersible shuddered and began its rapid climb towards the surface. Each second felt like an eternity as I watched the dark, foreboding depths recede behind me. The terror of the encounter was still fresh, lingering in the back of my mind like a shadow that refused to dissipate. My thoughts spiraled uncontrollably as I imagined the countless ways the situation could have ended if the robotic arm hadn't jerked to life at that critical moment. I could vividly picture the glass shattering under the relentless assault of those monstrous beings, the submersible imploding under the crushing pressure of the deep, and my body being torn apart in an instant, an unrecognizable fragment lost to the abyss. As the submersible accelerated upward, every creak and groan of the hull seemed amplified, each one a reminder of how perilously close I had come to disaster. My heart pounded in my chest, and with every passing second, I found myself glancing back into the dark void, fearing that the creatures might regroup, their malevolent eyes locked onto me, and launch a final, relentless pursuit. The rush to safety was a desperate, frantic bid to outrun the nightmare that had emerged from the depths, a horror so profound that even the vastness of the ocean seemed small in comparison. Yet, amidst the overwhelming fear, another thought gnawed at me, an unsettling realization that I had encountered something more than just terrifying monsters. These beings, grotesque as they were, had exhibited signs of intelligence. The way they wielded their weapons, their coordinated movements, and even the eerie sounds they emitted suggested a level of awareness, a society perhaps, hidden in the deepest reaches of the Mariana Trench. When we think of intelligent life beyond our own, our minds always travel to distant galaxies, to the farthest reaches of the cosmos, where we imagine encountering beings from other worlds. We never consider that such life might exist right here on Earth, lurking in the unexplored depths of our own planet. The idea that intelligence could evolve in the crushing darkness of the ocean's abyss, so close yet so alien to us, was terrifying. It shattered the comfortable illusion that Earth was fully known and understood, forcing me to confront the possibility that we are not as alone as we believe. As the submersible continued its ascent, the questions persisted, haunting me as much as the encounter itself. What else lurked down there, in the depths we had barely begun to explore? And had I just witnessed a glimpse of something humanity was never meant to find? The darkness of the ocean's depths might hide more than just ancient secrets. It might conceal a new, horrifying reality we are not prepared to face.